Session is being recorded and will be made available at the conclusion of the conference. My name is Stasia Lopez, and I'm a board member of the Career Counselors Consortium, and I'll be moderating the session for today for Ms. Susan Joyce, our keynote speaker. Some quick housekeeping items to address first. Please keep yourselves muted while Susan is talking to keep any background noise and distractions to a minimum. You are welcome to add your questions and comments into the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll be checking it frequently for questions, and we'll address them toward the end of the presentation. Now to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Susan Joyce. Susan holds a Bachelor of Science in Education and an MBA in Information Technology. A veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps and 2 corporate layoffs, Susan worked in HR at Harvard University in a compensation consulting firm and served as a visiting scholar at MIT Sloan, researching the long-term unemployed. Since 1998, Susan has been publisher, editor, webmaster, and chief writer for jobhunt.org. She has been studying, writing, and speaking about online job search since 1995, building on her unique background in military intelligence, technology, and human resources. A LinkedIn member since 2004, Susan has been teaching about effective use of internet technology for the job search for many years. Please welcome Ms. Susan Joyce.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to give this talk. I hope you can all hear me. All right, let me see if I can share my screen. Yeah, slideshow, okay.
Yep, we can see it.
There we go. Great. All right. Hello, everybody. This is what we're going to talk about. I mean, Google is so talented, just much more talented than any of us use. And I'm going to cover some of the ways that you can leverage the talent to help your clients. And one of the first ways I'm going to talk about is defensive Googling, which I've been preaching about for about 10 years now. And then we're going to look into how to search LinkedIn with Google, because sometimes if you've done too much searching on LinkedIn, they will stop you from being able to search. So LinkedIn searching is often, Google is often the best way to do it. And it's the way that a lot of recruiters do it. And it's called X-raying LinkedIn. Then we'll look at, excuse me, finding employers, excuse me again, on Google Maps. Another good way, if someone is looking for a place to work, Google Maps can be a great tool. Then one of my favorite tricks with Google is to specify the time frame for the results. So it will give you everything, but sometimes you only want what was in the last 24 hours or the last week, particularly like when it's about coronavirus or something along those lines, where it's kind of an urgent topic and you want something quick, or sometimes you want to know what happened, 2 years ago. And Google has a way to help you do that. Then we've got a bunch more Google search tricks. Excuse me. Of course, what happened when I'm talking. A bunch more Google search tricks to use. And we'll go through all the ones until we run out of time. So, anybody recognize this face? I bet most people, yeah, most people in this group will recognize this face. This is Dick Bowles, and he said this to me in 2009, and it was like, oh, of course, he's right, absolutely, positively right. And it hadn't occurred to me until Dick said it, but that's the reason we need to do something I call defensive Googling. It's got a bad reputation. People call it ego surfing. That's nonsense. Right now, because so many employers, and close to 100% of employers and recruiters, Google people before they interview them or consider them for a job, and certainly before they make a job offer. So it's very important to know what Google will show them when they do the search. So do a Google search for your name. And the tricky part of this, or the trickiest part of it, is to use an incognito version or incognito window on Chrome or a private window on other browsers, because they avoid the impact of your other Google searches and the websites you visit. So it just gives you a look at Google search results without any impact from your preferences. And you can find those browser windows. Usually you click on a box somewhere. For Chrome, there's 3 dots that are arranged vertically in the upper right corner. And if you click on those 3 dots, you can open an incognito window, and that enables you to do the search very effectively. Other browsers usually call it private, so you can open a private window in another browser. Whichever browser you use will have that capability. You might have to dig for it, but it's there. Then put your name inside quotation marks, so Google knows you mean these 2 words as a phrase. And check the first 3 pages and see what's there. Hopefully, if the person has a good LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn is usually on the first page of search results and typically at the top. I mean, it drives me crazy personally. When I search on my name, I've run job hunts since 1998. Guess what the top search result is on my name? It's LinkedIn. Job hunt is number 2, but LinkedIn is number 1. So LinkedIn is very powerful, and it will show up, but and so will other social media, which can be good and bad, and other websites. And there's a group of websites, I call them information aggregators, and they collect the information from public records, and also they pay Facebook for some information. And they share things like, if someone does a search on the name, and there isn't a LinkedIn profile or other good information on the first page, they will find these information aggregators. And usually the first thing the information aggregator shares is the person's name, address, and age. So you want to knock those off the first page as much as possible. Although usually when you look at search results, when anyone looks at search results, they don't usually look past the top 5 items. But just in case somebody's being thorough, check the first 3 pages. Something may be on the way up that could be very damaging. Someone else could have the same name. I know so many job seekers who've been impacted by having the same name. One guy had the same name as a disbarred attorney who was mentioned in a Supreme Court decision. So, you know, it means you change your name so that it's clear you're not that person. That's why I'm Susan P. Joyce instead of Susan Joyce. There's even another Susan Joyce in my husband's family, so I had to differentiate myself. Fortunately, I did it a long time ago. There's a lot of Susan P. Joyces now. But anyway, do this consistently and do not think of it as ego surfing. It's not. It's self-defense. All right, when it comes to X-raying LinkedIn with Google to find people, the way you tell Google that you want it to search through LinkedIn is you give it this little site colon indicator up here under X-ray. And then for LinkedIn, when you want to limit the searches just to the profiles, you tell it to look in the IN profile. So this is an example of how those search results looked. I was looking for recruiters for Google in Cambridge, and bingo, there they are, the LinkedIn profiles for recruiters for Google in Cambridge. So when you're looking for profiles in LinkedIn, do site colon and no space between site and the domain name. And then add the IN to tell Google that you want to look at the profiles. That's where you want it to search. And again, no space between the com and the IN. Make sense? The bad news is this is limited to public profiles when people are smart enough to make their profile public. And I hope once they have a good profile, they are that smart, because otherwise all the recruiters that X-ray LinkedIn will not see them. So this is limited to the public profiles, but it's not limited to the people you're connected to. That's the good news about it. It will search through all of LinkedIn, regardless of your connection. Now, if you want to find employers, you do a similar thing. You X-ray LinkedIn going through the company section, the company directory of LinkedIn. And it's very similar. Whatever the company name is goes after the slash and then a space. And in this case, we were looking for Boston banks. And look at this, we found all these private Boston banks. Very interesting. Of course, we all know about Bank of Boston and all the other banks. These are the banks you don't necessarily know about because these are usually kind of low profile banks for very wealthy people. But it's the same kind of search. Site : tells Google you want to look at LinkedIn, / company says you're looking for employers or for companies. And company doesn't mean an incorporation necessarily. Colleges are companies, nonprofits are companies. When it comes to LinkedIn, company applies to everything, even the government. Make sense?
We did have one question, Susan, if you wouldn't mind answering this one. We had a couple questions come through about how does a person knock the results off the first page or even eliminate any negative material?
You push things off the first page most easily by getting active in social media, set up a good Twitter account, a good Facebook account, answer questions on Quora, publish articles on Medium, build your visibility somewhere else, and that will push the information aggregators down. But a LinkedIn profile is essential. It's what most recruiters are looking for, but having the other information available will push the aggregators off the first page, or at least down to the bottom. I wish we could, give Google a call and say, hey, Google, don't link to this, and you can't. They, unless it's violating a copyright or violating law in some way, Google will not remove it from search results. So you have to push it down. Make sense?
Thank you.
Okay, that's X-raying LinkedIn. All right, now Google Maps. This was one of my favorites before I learned how to X-ray LinkedIn for companies. If someone wants to work for like an insurance company or an accountant or whatever, type the category into the Google search, and at the top of the search results, there may be ads in the way, but there will also be a nice big map that shows you where these folks are located. Click on that map, and now if Google knows your location, if you're not in an incognito browser window, if Google knows your location, it will search for your location. If it doesn't know your location, or if you want a different location, then you add the location. Like I would do insurance company and then Chicago or whatever, wherever your location is. And then when you click on the map, you get an amazing amount of information for each of those little red dots. You get the name and the city, you get the star rating review, you get their hours of open, when they're open for business, assuming they've published that on their website. You get the website URL if they have any, and believe it or not, not everybody does. And you also get a phone number and driving directions. So you get a lot of detail, and you can find some very interesting companies that you didn't know exist. I mean, one of the big problems I see with job boards is that when you do a job board, the search results show you only the employers who are hiring right now. It doesn't show you the employers that are there but maybe haven't posted the job, or are maintaining a low profile for some reason, or just aren't aware that they can make things visible in Google. And a lot of companies aren't, particularly small ones. So Make sense? And this is one of my favorites because it's so important sometimes, is specifying the time frame. Whenever I'm doing a search on something about the coronavirus, I search the current week. And you find that by, you click on Tools, which is at the far right of the browser in the Google search bar. And notice you have other options in the search bar. You can search for news, for videos, for images, and a whole bunch of other things. So don't always think that all is your best option there. But you click on Tools, and then you go over and you click on Anytime, and it shows you your options. And pick the option that you like best, or you can even create a custom range. You see the bottom option there is custom range. You can even choose a custom range and tell Google the period you want it to search in. All right, I hope everybody knows this, but just in case they don't, when you want Google to search on a phrase, you put quotation marks around the phrase. Otherwise, Google thinks you mean and. Martin and Luther and King, or Martin Luther King. Two different things. Google ignores capitalization usually. There's a couple of places where it doesn't, and I'll mention one of them to you later on another slide. Work from home jobs. Here's another phrase, work from home jobs, Boston administrative assistant. So you've got quotation marks around the phrase. Google understands what you're looking for and will give you pretty good results. Now, one of my favorite things is this or that. Unless you tell Google or, Google assumes and. Now, this is where capitalization matters. You have to capitalize the or. So, let's say you want to work from home jobs or remote jobs or WFH jobs. You would separate the query sections or query parts with the or capitalized. Put it in parentheses if this is all one search. Put it in parentheses so Google knows that you want all of these together. This is how you tell Google that. And then you can combine it with other terms. So work from home or remote or WFH, admin assistant, again, quotation marks, Boston. And Google will give you the results. And it of course, doesn't have to apply just to jobs. That would just what I thought would be a good search example for us. More Google search tricks. And this is one of my favorites. This is a minus sign. Sometimes you get search results and they're almost right, but there's too many of the wrong kind of thing included. And Google knows that. And so they let you put a minus sign in front of things you want removed from the results. Now, my experience, you can go up to 3 or 4 minus signs and then they stop working well. But for instance, if you're looking for Massachusetts banks, as we were when we were x-raying LinkedIn, and it turns up fish banks and food banks. Those are very important topics, but they're not the topic that you're searching for now. So you put a minus fish and minus food and no space between the minus sign and the word you want Google to eliminate from the results, and you will get results that don't include those. Now, for example, you might be looking for a job, but as an administrative job, but you don't want job postings from a bank you used to work for that you don't want to go back to. Get the bank domain name and do minus site : and then the domain name for the bank you want to exclude. So Google will eliminate those from your results. Very handy. And you can eliminate 2 or 3 or 4 of these as well. Now let's say you aren't sure exactly what the job title is for a specific job. Google has a wildcard. You can put an asterisk. So you do the phrase with the quotation marks around it, and you've got the asterisk in the middle. Now, maybe it's an assistant branch manager, maybe it's an assistant section manager, who knows what they call it. Include other parts of your requirement in the query, and then stick the asterisk in there wherever it's appropriate, in case you don't know exactly what they use. And this can be a great way to refine your search. So you see that this particular bank calls that particular job assistant branch manager. Then you do the search, you get rid of the asterisk, and you put branch in there. By the way, I see people making notes, and I will put a copy of this presentation up on Job Hunt as a PDF. I haven't done that yet, but I'll do it as soon as this is over.
We had one question come in about where do you put the domain name for not pulling up a specific company?
You put it right after the word site and the minus. The minus site example, minus site colon example, no spaces, minus site, and no space between the minus and the site. They have to be right on top of each other. Google, make it really clear to Google exactly what you're doing, because if you have spaces in there, it won't work.
And you don't have to put a comma, right? Everything's just in quotation marks if you have multiple things that you're trying to find. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, no need to put commas in a query. So, you know, let's see. Work from home jobs, remote jobs, WFH, admin assistant, Boston, no comma. No commas anywhere there. Don't put commas in. I've never done that. I don't think it will hurt, but I wouldn't do it because I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope. No, you have 8 minutes left, I think.
Oh, I've got, according to my watch, I've got 2 minutes left. All right. Let's say you want to search the Massachusetts government site. You're looking for something in specific, and this can apply to any domain name. If you want to search in that domain name, do site colon domain name. It's like you're searching in LinkedIn.com. I used Massachusetts government site as an example, mass.gov. You're looking for coronavirus stuff, or you're looking for where you can get your driver's license renewed or whatever. Same applies to MIT. Double check the domain name to make sure you're using the right domain name. And then, you know, it could be site colon mass.gov driver's license renewal in quotation marks. And that would get you to that specific part of the mass.gov website, which hopefully is the best information for that topic. Make sense? And you put any domain name in there. I just gave a .gov and a .edu example so you would know it applied to more than .com.
So just for clarification, since this came up in the chat box, so you could add the word jobs in the query. So it could say site.mit.edu jobs.
Jobs, absolutely, yep. And you don't have to put quotation marks around jobs unless you say assistant physics professor needs quotation marks around it or whatever. Absolutely, yeah. Put whatever you want into the query. I search for books on Amazon this way all the time. Site colon amazon.com, books, and then quotation marks around job search. That's what I do. So this applies to every site that Google has searched and has indexed. Now, there's some other neat things that Google can do. I mean, if you want a definition of a term, type define colon and then the term. And it even applies, it even applies to acronyms. Define colon the acronym, and it will tell you what the acronym stands for. Check spelling. I do this all the time because I'm a terrible speller. Type the word into the search box and Google will say, did you mean? If you didn't spell it right, or if you did spell it right, it will give you the search results that tell you you spelled it right, show you you spelled it right. And synonyms. I use this a lot when I'm writing. Synonym for query, or synonym for plethora, or synonym for whatever. And if it's, you can do synonyms for phrases as well. Just be sure to put the quotation marks around the phrases. And this is very handy, particularly when you're dealing with people in another time zone. If you want to know what time it is officially here, just type time into the search bar. If you want to know what time it is in Chicago, type time in Chicago, or time in Los Angeles, or time in whatever. Time in London, time in Paris, it will tell you. And it also does math. The asterisk is a multiplier. So if you needed to quickly multiply 12.2 times 14.5 and you didn't have a calculator handy, type it into Google. Or if you want to divide 613 by 4.8, type it into Google. Or if you want to add a bunch of numbers, type them into Google. And Google will give you the result.
Susan, one question that came in for the query, do you have to keep it in brackets?
No. The brackets are just there to show you where you would put the query. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, don't. Brackets are not necessary and probably not useful. That just represents whatever your search is for that particular site or that particular example.
Great. We have 2 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, keep them coming in the chat box while Susan, continues her presentation.
Okay, well, I'm getting real close to the end. And if you need conversions and it's converting, literally thousands and thousands of things, convert $250 into yen, just type that into the query box, or turn 2,500 miles into kilometers, or whatever you need to convert, dollars and euros, or dollars and franc. Do we still have francs anymore? Anyway, Google knows how to do the math for that, and it will even give you the current value. And in fact, I didn't put this on the slide, but let's say you own Google stock. You can type Google stock. I think that's all you need, and it will show you the current New York Stock Exchange number, I think. I haven't done that for a long time, so that's a little shaky, but in case you're following the stock market, that's another way to do it, is with Google. So, any more questions?
Does Google know the truth from fact to fiction, or vice versa?
Google knows what it finds, and it indexes what it finds. It doesn't separate truth from lies. No, that's not one of the things they do, unfortunately. I think it would be hard to do, very hard to do, even for Google.
Let's see. I think that was all of the questions. I hope I'm not missing anything. We had one question that was related but not direct, but what do folks think of the open to new opportunities badge on LinkedIn? Will that help, let's say in a query, or if you're doing a search, Would that be something that you could search also? How you just did the job hunt thing that you just showed us on Google? Is that a trick? Because that's a new icon. Like you could put the badge
Yeah.
picture.
I don't know. I've never tried to search for that. I suspect you could do the people search linkedin.com/in and then type in open to new opportunities. I'm not sure that would show up. It might, and it might not. I'm not sure about that. Regarding using it, I've seen some recruiters I've talked to say it's a great idea. Some recruiters I've talked to say it's a terrible idea.
I've heard mixed reviews as well about it. Sabrina had a question, I think, of sorry.
Oh yeah, question.
5 minutes or okay.
I know, and we're now on official break time, so if people want to split off for those 10 minutes, I just want people to know that they can. But before you go, I highly recommend, I've got a comment and a question, highly recommend go to job-hunt.org, get on the mailing list. It is sent out once a week. You should all be on this mailing list. Susan obviously writes content and she curates content from fantastic practitioners. This is like not to be missed. And sometimes I'm stuck on something. I go to Susan's site and I will search on a topic and be like, what was said about LinkedIn about blah, 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 blah. And I will get an article on it. So can't say enough about that. The very specific, quick question. Yeah, very specific, small, quick question I have for you, Susan, is if I've used up all my search capability in LinkedIn and it's telling me you've reached your commercial limit, blah, 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 or whatever that statement is, if I do the site linkedin.com/in, is that bypassing that limit?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of people use it.
So good. Yes.
Very handy.
Okay.
Very handy.
Fantastic.
We've had a
so
lot
much
of good feedback for you, Susan. Everyone loved it. They enjoyed the tips. They learned a lot of good feedback about your session today.
Oh, good.
Eager to see.
I'll put that handout up in less than 20 minutes. It'll be up there.
Fantastic.
And be sure to capitalize the CCC, that PDF, and you'll find it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much again.
It was an honor to speak to you all, and I wish everyone well in these very, very interesting times.
Same to you, Susan. Thank you. Thanks for being so wonderful.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
So feel free to pop off.